Hey Addicts, welcome back to another Walking Dead video. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about the mid-season finale of Season 9, which is Episode 8, and this is the episode where we get the first interaction of the Whisperers for our survivors. And for this episode, I'll be honest with you, there's some things that I really liked. I've been saying this, maybe for some of our other ones, but I don't know, there's still, like this one, in terms of mid-season finales, I think this felt a little weak, but it's still got some parts that I think are good, but we're just going to jump right into it. I guess starting off, if you want to, like a really brief recap, like I said, we just get to see the Whisperers, we get to see Daryl and Aaron and Jesus go out and actually trying to look for Eugene, and then we got Michonne, Sadiq, and then Magnus group coming to the hilltop, and that's basically all we get. It's very hilltop heavy, and then we get a little bit of out in the wilderness as they're looking for Eugene. So getting right into it, we're just going to be going through the episode, as we, as it's laid out. So like I said, we open up with Daryl, Aaron, and Jesus looking at the walkers, which I just wanted to say there is a really cool shot as they pan over the group. It's got a real, I don't know if this is the correct word, but this is the only one I could think of, is ominous. It kind of feels like there's a presence there that's not like we've seen before, which obviously, like myself and other comic readers know, we know what's coming up. But still, though, knowing that they don't know what's coming up, I think, and especially for like the audience, they're not playing it as the audience knows. So I like how they are, or how they did present the Whisperers in terms of, the reveal. I like the atmosphere up to that point. We'll go into the specifics of the reveal and kind of like my thoughts, but, as it's starting off, it's looking really good. And then we get snippets of it going back and forth with Alexandria, but it's not a heavy part of the episode. It's mainly getting to see Gabriel and Negan, which we get to see that Gabriel is actually being the one to have more of a talk and connection time with Negan, kind of taking a little bit of that Carl/Rick comic story, which, I'll be honest, in the show, it does feel like the best fit, considering that they were stuck in the annex building during the war, so they already have that past history, and I kind of suspected that they would be the ones to have that kind of discussion, but it still feels really flat and kind of uninteresting, at least to me. I think, considering what we could have gotten, it just seems, a little lackluster, so I wasn't, excited to see it, but for what it was, I was okay with it. But in this discussion, we get to see that Negan kind of is talking about how they have the window in the cell and how that's kind of his new form of TV, and that's how he's able to kind of eavesdrop on the gossip that's going down, because he's been there for so many years that people kind of forget that he's there. And it seems like they subtly hint that he hears about Rosita maybe having an affair. That's like a comic thing, so in the show, not sure if they're really going to go that route, or what purpose it would really serve if they did, since it doesn't look like Rosita's pregnant in this. But it's just a little thing. Could just be like an Easter egg thing. Then we get to see it cuts to the messenger that we got to see in the last episode, when he actually is leaving Hilltop to go to Alexandria, and he meets up with Michonne, and she says, no, go back and tell him we're coming. And even though he knows that it's Michonne, when he's getting back to the Hilltop, he tells everybody that it's dispersed, and everything, like there's danger approaching, which, this leads into, obviously, they're blatantly laying it out there that there's some bad blood that's happened in the time skip, and that people aren't really okay, with what's all gone down. And might dive in a little bit more of that when, I mentioned some discussions, but we just get to see that's a little sneak peek there a little bit more so. Let's see here. Oh, we get a little bit of a moment. I guess that's right here. We get to see Michonne and Carol have a moment, which I do like. Carol's mentioning that they both lost children. They deal with it. I'm not liking how they're seeming that all the other communities are on board for the fair, and Alexandria seems to be the only one backing out of not wanting to do that because with it being Rick's idea or I guess it's Carl's idea on the show, and then Rick wanting to keep it alive. It seems like the person that would be most for it would be Michonne. And if Michonne didn't want to do it, I have a hard time believing that the characters would be like, yeah, let's keep doing it. Granted, we don't know what's happened, but it just feels weird having Michonne in the state, especially considering how much open-minded and being connected she was to, in the previous episodes in this season, and then as well as the last season. And I'm getting a little bit tired of her attitude, but since we don't know what happened, it's kind of like one of those things I can't really, accurately judge if she's acting out of character or not, since we don't know. But hopefully it's something good, because as of right now, I'm getting a little tired of seeing it. But with getting on to we get a sneak peek, or not a sneak peek, but we bounce back to Daryl and I'm just gonna say Daryl's group. Their little search party. And this is a little thing that we didn't get to see when they saved Magna's group, but it's something that I was like, man, that really sucks we didn't get it, and that's the diversion of the herd. And but we get to see something similar. It's not exactly like it is in the comic, but we get to see something similar with Daryl throwing a wind-up clock, and he chucks it to kind of divert the herd, with the noise. And that's just a little something that I wish we got to see more of, and hopefully in the future we get to see it. But I just really liked that. Then we get back to, like I said, mentioned, Alexandria staying out of the fair. I really don't like that. I think it's stupid, specifically because in the comic, the fair was held at Alexandria, so don't like that at the moment. We get to see a little bit of Enid and Henry interacting. At first, some people may have been like, are they together? No, I think it's more of I think maybe for Henry, he was thinking that, maybe I can get romantically into her. But, wow, I said that really weird. Anyway, I'm going to just move on past that. But we get to see that Enid is actually romantically interested in for the life of me, I cannot remember the guy's name because he's not important, but he's the savior that Maggie saved and is staying at the hilltop. They're together, and I think this is setting up for Henry and Enid to have a friendship going on. It really depends if they're going to bring Lydia into the show, because I think that's a love interest that would probably fall to Henry if they did that, unless they aged up Lydia and maybe gave it to Daryl, but we don't know if that's going to happen. But I think, as of right now, they're going to be more of a friendship. I also think that this little setup is maybe putting that savior guy, or I could say ex-savior guy, on the possibility of being on the pike, because I'm a little fuzzy because it's been a while, but I feel like there was a certain familiar setup in the comic where they had, we didn't know them, they were random characters, but they were kind of like lovers, and one of them ended up being piked, and maybe I'm just remembering that wrong, maybe this is something that I want to see, but I think that would be, a character that would add more depth to Enid, but it would also give us a big death, that's not going to hurt the show. So that's why, I think that would be a good pick if it's not already going in that direction. Back with Gabriel, we get to see that he is actually inside the cell. And, for all those comic readers out there, you were probably like, oh, is this the scene with, I believe, Olivia in the comics where, something doesn't get put back the way it is? And sure enough, later on in the episode, we do get to see that, and I'll mention that a little bit later, because it is done a little bit differently. But there was... I did like how they're showing, they actually handcuff him. Because in the in the comic, I don't remember them showing how they did it. I mean, you could assume that they did it in a similar way, but I did like that little touch. Just making it feel more realistic. But the one thing I didn't like, and I can mention it later on, but I think in the way they shot it, that the cliffhanger that they had, maybe it needed to be put somewhere else or maybe closer to the end, because the way they shot it just didn't seem as believable. I'll go into more of that detail later on, though. We get to see back at the hilltop that there is a group of teens that, I'm going to call them teens, but they're around Henry's age and they live at the hilltop, and they make comments of that, oh yeah, you're the kid with the stick when the war was going on, right? And I kind of had a little bit of a problem with that, because I don't recall seeing, I know there was younger people, in a sense, in the hilltop, but we never really saw them, and I don't think there was anybody that would really fit the age group. Nitpick, I know, it doesn't really matter, but it was just one of those things where I was like, maybe would have been more believable if they were just like, oh yeah, we showed up like 4 or 5 years ago. But instead, they like had one kid say that he had lived there for most of his life. So that seemed like, math-wise, I was like, wait a second, I don't know how that computes. I didn't take the time to add it up though, so I could be wrong. Just a little thing. And then we get to see that, Henry caves into peer pressure like every teen does, and he's going to do something stupid and go outside the gates when, they've already shut up the community. So we know that there's probably trouble looming there. Then we get to get back at... this was kind of like a little bit of my train of thought when I was watching it. And the people's thoughts, I guess feelings about Michonne, I think we're past the point of people being upset or not approving of how Michonne has been dealing with Negan, because it just doesn't feel... One, it feels like it'd be rehashed if it is, but two, there's a statement that Michonne says that she's like, well, at least they're alive so they can hate me, or something along that lines. You can go watch it. It's when she's talking with Sadiq when they're sitting by Rosita's bedside. But the way she said it in the phrasing, it made me think that, it's definitely not Negan is the part that's causing the spark. And it seems like there's been a situation that has been a life or death that has put some of the communities in trouble. Maybe it was on the road or something like that. Because there's also a little bit of this when Michonne's talking to Carol, to where, she's like, we got to take care of our own. And I don't know, it just feels like maybe there was an attack on a community or something on the road happened that while they were, trying to bridge the gap. Maybe something similar, probably on a bigger scale, but something similar to what happened to Carol and Henry when they were on their way to the hilltop, being jumped by the surviving saviors. So I think it's something maybe along those lines. We'll probably figure out later on as people talk more about it. But that's kind of the direction I'm thinking of. I don't know if anybody else had the other things, but anyway. Let's see here. So, Rosita's dialogue is when she wakes up and everything. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Rosita. In fact, there's a lot of things that she does on the show that kind of piss me off. And it's not that I hate her character or anything. It's just like some things either don't fit, or the way she goes about things seem just, I don't know, snooty. I don't know. There's something about it. I'm looking forward to her head on the pike, but don't know if that's going to happen. But I kind of hope it is. But, regardless, we get to see that she is saying that, they have no idea what they're messing with. We need to go help them now. And so that leads to Michonne, Sadiq, and a few other people, head out. We don't get to see that, but that's what it alludes to. And that goes on later on the later part of the episode. This is a part where... this is where the episode, I think, really starts to kick off, because up until this point, it's been kind of... This is where I say where it's not the best mid-season finale or anything like that. At least, I'd have to go back and maybe say that for sure, but, it seemed like it dragged his feet a little bit. But this last 20 minutes, I think, regardless of, decisions made or, what the characters do, I think how it's shot with the atmosphere and like the tone it kind of sets, and just the choices they made when physically filming this. I thought it was really cool, and I honestly want more shots like these. Like the last 20 minutes of this episode is good. It's like really good. It's like probably the best tone and like weather-wise too. It's just so great. I love that atmosphere that they created. There's especially a wide shot as they're going over a field where you see the storm and the fog, and then immediately cuts to where they can barely see anything. We've had maybe a couple emphases in like some other episodes, but this one I think did it on a whole new level. It was just really cool to see. But we get to see bouncing back to the teens having their little hideout, which at first I was like, that kind of looks like the house Carol was staying in, but I was like, it's not that house because that one was closer to the kingdom. But, setting-wise, maybe they shot it there. But we can see that they have a little, hideout area where they can go drink some moonshine, and then they're messing with a walker, which Henry decides to do the right thing and, put it down because, I'm not going to go into that, but you get probably what his motivation was behind there. But I think I don't really know if it makes sense, with the Whisperers being here now, to really have a conflict, or like a really petty conflict between these teens. But I feel like this might be just a remix from the comic with Carl and dealing with the other kids. And to be honest, we don't really need that, because of how they're flowing the stuff in the show. But maybe later on they could still do it if they really wanted to. But for me, it just felt like they were just, planting that seed, leaving it open to where if they wanted to bring that kind of conflict in there. But because they leave them and they're like, you asshole, you're dead to me. Not really, but kind of. Anyway, we get to see that... Oh, this was probably the stupidest part of the whole episode right here. So, they find Eugene, Daryl, Aaron, and Jesus. And I do like the dialogue in there where they're thinking, Eugene has this deal where they're like, they're evolving, they're talking, we heard them, stuff like that. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but because you probably watched the episode, but you know what I mean. I like all that, but there was a thing where Eugene, and this is kind of poor writing, or at least maybe in this instance, you kind of threw yourself over, because they mention how Eugene's leg is dislocated, and Daryl says that, they can fix it, which, Hollywood logic would be like, oh, it's 100% better, or it's, oh, he can at least probably jog. So, they make that comment, but yet, they're like, oh, we gotta get out of here, there's no time. But then they sit down, and they're like, no, like Eugene's like, just leave me, I'm dragging you behind. Or they're like, oh, maybe we can split up and, buy some time. And I was like, if you're going to sit there, why not just pop it back in place? And if it's, at least in the show's logic and the world, it's like, if it's, better to where he could actually keep up and they could create distance, why don't they just do that? So I think mentioning the fact that it would be really easy was kind of a hindrance to the whole situation, because it just didn't make any logical sense why they wouldn't, try to fix it so that it could, even if it's a little bit, to where you can put more pressure on it. Even walking at a steady pace is better than having two people having to, kind of semi-carry you. And so that was just kind of like a no sense moment, which I think is probably the weakest part of the episode. But flashing back to Alexandria, we get to see, again, this is coming back to the scene I was talking about earlier, where in the comic, we get to see that somebody doesn't leave the jail cell completely locked, and we come back to that here. And, with the time elapsing, because when Gabriel last talked to Negan, it was maybe around dusk, or at least it was a little bit light out, right? So by the time Negan realizes that the door is not fully latched, it's nighttime. And I just think that really weakens that moment. I mean, you could, argue me on that, because by the end of the day, it comes down to opinion. But I think even having those scenes, filmed back to back, or having it in the same scene where they walk out the door and then you see it inch open, or he throws it and he misses and it goes over, and then he walks over and sees it. That just would have been, I don't know, just done a little bit better. I still really liked, though, how Negan, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, he looks at the screen, or he looks at the ball, picks it up, and he has this evil smirk, kind of how we saw him in the war, and then he just tosses the ball and then he bounces. Which this is going to be really tricky because in the comic, Negan, he has a lot of different motivations. There's a lot of different things going on with Negan in the comic because, Rick is still alive, Carl's still alive. So he has a lot more of those connections. In the show, he doesn't really have any connections that's really keeping him there or wanting him to redeem himself in a sense. So I don't really see him acting like he did in the comic from this point forward. They're probably going to be remixing that, and I'm interested to see where it goes, but I'm not overly, excited or looking forward to it because I just don't know if the potential's there, you know what I mean? Because Rick is gone, Carl's gone, and Maggie's not on the show right now, and so it feels a little weak, so I don't know if what they're going to do, but I'm just waiting it out just to see. Let's see here. Oh, they're, flashing back, which after this scene, seeing Negan in the prison, we get to flash over to the hilltop and see Henry in the cell that they have at the hilltop. And there's a really good mirror scene of a few episodes ago. We got to see that Earl was in the prison to help, because he attempted to kill Maggie for Gregory. And then she had him in the cell, and they have a moment talking. And this scene really mirrors that with having Henry in the jail cell, and then Earl talking to him, saying, I was in that exact same position. And so I liked that moment and how it connects, and we get that callback. And, it just goes to show how much Earl has changed too. But I'll be honest, I don't really care right now. That adds, I guess you could say it adds a little bit more to Henry as showing, a little bit about Earl. But those, Earl's a really, really side character. He's important to the community, but he, as a character, he doesn't really matter. So, that kind of was meh. And with, Henry, they're building him up to be a bigger character. But right now, we still haven't seen anything for us to really be really connected to him. Even though, we saw him when he was younger, but that was even worse. So, I'm optimistic. I think he has potential to be better than TV Carl, but, I don't know. There's still a lot of things that could go wrong. I'm just, waiting. I think, maybe looking back, if he gets really, likable and he becomes a really strong character, this might be a scene when you rewatch it, you might be like, man, this has so much more impact. So that might be what they're going for, but as of right now, I just take it or leave it. We get to see that Daryl tries another diversion tactic with him separating from Aaron and Jesus to buy them a little bit more time, and we get to see the fireworks stuff, which we got 2 of them in one episode, so I was happy to see little things like that. But we get to see that, Daryl knows that something's up because, the herd recorrects and actually goes in the opposite direction of where the noise was. And it's kind of, in the preview, in that same scene, it kind of they make it sound like that Daryl hears the people whispering, or I guess the walkers whispering. But in the episode, I don't really think he would hear them, and I couldn't really make it out. They did a really good job of, making it hear like you could hear that people were whispering, but you couldn't make it out what they were hearing at all. Or maybe that's just my blocked ears. I don't know. But moving on to that, we get to see the cemetery and the walkers flooding the cemetery and with the fog. And like I said, the way it's shot, it looks really cool. And I don't think, at least in the show, I don't believe we've had walkers in the cemetery before. So this was really cool to see. It gives it more of that horror vibe, which is always great. And then we get to see, they're trying to get out, but they're blocked by a gate, and they can't lift Eugene over the wall, so they're making a stand to fight. And we get to see a cool combo of them. You get to see Jesus do some martial art moves, which is great because we haven't seen that in forever, or at least not that much in the show. And then this leads to Michonne showing up, and with a lot of people, because we got Magnus group came, or at least part of them came. I think all of them would come anyway. So, and then they help Eugene get out, and then Aaron just leaves Jesus behind because Jesus was like, "No, I got it." And so, which again, this is where the episode takes a turn for me, because there's so many people that came to look for them, and especially, with Rosita being so adamant, telling them that they don't understand, they're underestimating things. It just felt weird that, after they opened up the gate, White Michonne and Magnus group wouldn't, stand in there and be like, "Yeah, we'll help you take these out. There's not that many of them," And so that's, having Jesus have his last stand it was a cool moment, but I'll be honest, I really didn't like that they killed him off. I mean, it's not that, Jesus is a really cool character, and I like him in the comic a lot, but in the show, it's not that, I'm against them killing them off, because I think it's cool when they kill them off, but it just felt like there was no meaning behind it, and the way that, I will say, the way the Whisperer killed Jesus, that's shot really well, but I don't know, there's something about that I didn't like it, and it also seemed maybe hard to believe, because I feel like, Jesus maybe would have seen that hit coming, in advance, especially with, how fluent he is in hand-to-hand. Also, the other thing that I thought was completely dumb was the way the Whisperers attacked. They had it to where they just charged out of the fog and out of the zombie group, and it just seemed less calculated than it was in the comic, and it just seemed like they were, I'll be honest, it seemed like they were more stupid. I didn't really like how that was shot, and it kind of worries me, because with the previews we saw, it seems like we're going to get more of that bonsai charge, and I'm just, because that's not really, because they took him out easy, Daryl ends up coming back, so we get to see the characters actually come in there, but I was so frustrated in this moment. So sad to see Jesus go. He is definitely dead, because we can kind of talk about the before I go into that, we end the episode with them being surrounded in the cemetery and hearing all the whispering going on. With that, we get to see the upcoming shots for this back half of the season, and I would assume anyway, they might do a bait and switch, but AMC has gotten a lot of backlash for doing this before, so technically there's still a tiny glimmer of hope that maybe Jesus is alive, but I'm pretty sure that he's dead. The way where he got stabbed, it looked like it was right next to his heart, if not in the spot where his heart is, And also in the upcoming previews, we get to see a coffin being buried in Hilltop, and so I think it's pretty self-explanatory that Jesus is a goner, and he died right there. We don't even see him still alive, when he hits the ground and when Aaron's standing over him. So 100% dead, So unless they do some weird non-continuity thing. But really bummed that Jesus is dead. I think this is a huge blow for the community. I don't think, if there was going to be somebody that died in this episode, I don't think it should have been Jesus. Although I will say, this kind of shows, again, it doesn't really show how deadly the Whisperers are, because the way that they were able to kill him, it was kind of like a lucky shot, because he kind of just charged. I guess the way that Whisperer killed him was a bit more well done, I guess, in terms of, on the Whisperer's part. But the rest of them just kind of charging at them, instead of being with the herd and then letting them come into the herd and to kill one, and then they basically counter and then kill them. I think in the comic it's just way more I guess, suspenseful and also just kind of like horrific because you're sitting there and you're trying to deal with the dead before they eat you. And then, out of nowhere, somebody just stabs you in the rib cage. And because of, I got stabbed in the frickin' rib cage, this walker comes on top of me and eats me, So that I found way more terrifying, and I really wish they would have done that. Again, kind of hinders because this is another thing that I kind of said last episode, but having the people out that got lost, and also having people that came and was looking for the people that were lost, having those characters that are going to be safe or that are going to play a major role going forward, that really hinders the Whisper's intro because it doesn't let them do anything, I mean, granted, they still killed Jesus, but in the grand scheme of things, they had the advantage, and they only were able to kill one person. And so, to me, I wouldn't be that worried about the Whispers, because it's like, wow, how many was there, and we just killed all of them, and we only lost one guy? That's pretty good. So right now, not liking that. But, like I said, the episode was shot really well, especially in the last 20 minutes. Great atmosphere. With the shots coming up, there's two in particular. I'm not going to speculate too hard because I'm just not going to do that. But two that I wanted to make mention of is we get to see a first look at Beta, which a little bummed that we got the reveal in the preview, but I will say there's a moment that they briefly show where they have Beta, and you get to see kind of a size comparison of him picking up Daryl and slamming him into a wall, which I like. That hyped me a little bit. Made me briefly forget about the garbage that I saw at the end of the episode, but looking forward to that, seeing how that's going to play out. We got a back shot of Alpha, which I don't know. I'm really iffy about the Whispers right now, but I think, they're, at least from that one little glimpse, it looks like there's going to be some good shots in here. The other thing that I want to mention is we get to see that Negan is out, and he's actually back at the Foundry, because he says it's good to be back home. And not sure what they're going to do there. I think Negan... it's really hard to say. We may skip over the whole thing about people wanting revenge on Negan and him being broken and everything, because we kind of got that with Michonne. It was like a remix of how Maggie's moment in the comic, we got it with Michonne instead, which felt really flat too. So I don't know if we're going to get that. We might just breeze over to where Negan's out and he's living on his own, as well as, kind of get that storyline remixed with his interaction with the Whisper War. And, who knows, maybe they'll have it to where at the end of this he comes out a hero, which I think would be really unbelievable. But as of right now, that's kind of all we're seeing. I hope he's just kind of chilling out, and, hopefully it's not something, too uninteresting. Because right now, I think Michonne and probably Negan are the weakest story lines for characters that, at least to me right now. But looking forward to see what you guys think. Did you like the introduction of the Whispers? If you're a TV only fan, were you surprised about the twist with the Whispers? Do you, as a TV only fan, if there's any out there watching this and has made it this far in the video, I'm curious to see if you guys, how threatening do you think the Whisperers are? Did you think that they did a really good job coming across their presence, or did you think it kind of felt flat? But I'm curious to see what you guys think, and I guess this will be the last Walking Dead video in a while before the break comes back. Although, do stay tuned for the first Wednesday, or at least the first week of December, because I will be back for the next issue of The Walking Dead. But until that time, I'll see you guys later. Peace out, addicts.